Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at a Collect Day figure, and this is a Collect Day Deluxe figure, and it is their Jobaria. And it is an extremely cool looking figure. Another sauropod kind of rearing up, and for some reason I've been reviewing a lot of this style figure lately. I don't know why. For some reason, they just keep jumping out at me, and I keep reviewing them because we've reviewed the Collect Day Diplodocus, then we reviewed the Batat Diplodocus, and now we have this Jobaria all up in that rearing position. So again, it's pretty cool to have them up in this positioning because it's different than most sauropods go, and there's not too many figures out there with this pose. I think there's also an Apatosaurus from Safari Ltd from a while back, but I don't know too many others aside from the ones that I've already reviewed and that Safari Apatosaurus that have this pose. So personally, I do quite like it. And the species of sauropod itself is very strange looking in comparison to most sauropod species. So that alone gives this figure cool points because it's a species you don't see get made very often, and I think Collect Day really did a pretty darn good job on it overall. So let's get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt does look really quite nice, and again, the sauropod itself, the species itself, is very strange looking in comparison to most other sauropods. But looking at the actual detailing of the head, you can see that the skin texture is actually really quite nice. Nice sculpted nostrils right there. You've got the mouth open so you can see the teeth, and the teeth all appear to be painted pretty nicely. There's honestly no sloppiness at all that I can see in there as far as the mouth and the teeth go. Maybe a little bit of the white coloration has run down to the lower jaw there as far as the inside goes, but it's nothing terrible. You've got the tongue sticking out there a little bit, which is sculpted quite nicely and also appears to be painted in a fairly realistic fashion. The eyes are painted with a brown and have a black pupil, and they are glossed, so they shine quite realistically and do look very nice overall. If we look at the opposing side, same deal over here. You can see the eyes shining quite nicely, and the overall skin texture of the head is really beautifully done. You can also see the ear sculpted out back there. So the overall sculpting of the head, I think, is beautiful, kind of like a scoot-like appearance that runs up here on the top of the head. As we start to lead into the neck, the skin detail starts to get a lot more fine and not quite as nice as what we saw up here on the head, but I still think it looks decent enough. As we lead down the neck, you can see a nice reddish coloration that runs along the spinal column, with certain areas kind of elaborated and painted with like a speckling of a black or a dark gray, and then that same coloration kind of leads down here and runs along the border of that red, and then transitions to this gray, and then transitions to like a light brown here for the underside of the neck. The underside of the neck sports some pretty decent detailing, but nothing over the top. As we lead down here into the shoulder, you can see a very muscular front leg here, along with a beautifully elaborated shoulder blade and some really nice skin detail here, kind of showing the movement of the skin with that very strong front leg pushing into it. Honestly, as far as that front leg goes, it looks like this Jobaria has been joining some weightlifting competitions, because that is a very jacked front leg there. As we move down the body, along with that beautiful musculature, you can see the elbow sculpted out there, and you can also see a few different variations of like even browns creeping through in the limbs of the dinosaur with the nice gray, and you have like a light gray dry brushing over top, and you can see the foot sculpt looks really good. The wrist also looks really nice there. As we look over the entire area of the front leg, the nails are painted quite nicely, so definitely a very nice appearance to the figure as far as the front leg goes. We lead back up here into the body, and again you can see that same style of scaling all over the dinosaur, that skin texture, and it doesn't look bad at all. And as we turn it, you can again see so much color variation with grays and even light browns creeping through in certain areas. It has a very realistic appearance as far as skin tone goes, and you can also see some black spots or dark gray spots spotting through all over the dinosaur. You can see some more movement being shown here with some skin folding and some nice skin stretching from the body right there. In the thigh area, you can see the musculature of the thigh, really nicely sculpted out kneecap as we lead down the leg into the rear foot sculpt. That also looks really nice. The nails are pretty much all painted with the same coloration that you see here. It's like a black that kind of highlights the foot, and then they just paint it over the nails in the same way. You can see some more speckling here and there as we lead up the leg, and then You can also take note to the hip bone a little bit right there. And then we lead down here into the tail, and the tail is what is currently holding the dinosaur up. And you've got that very short Jobaria tail, which is, again, one of the aspects that makes this dinosaur looks so strange. As far as the sauropod goes, the detailing of the neck on this side looks pretty similar to what we saw on the previous side. There's not really too much going on as far as movement being shown in the sculpt, but this is a pretty older figure as far as Collecta goes, so I feel like the actual detailing of the body isn't as up to par as what you see currently from Collecta. As we move down here, you can see how nicely sculpted out this front leg is as well. Again, looking extremely jacked like we saw on the previous side. The legs are in two totally opposite positions. This leg is holding on to whatever it is rearing up to eat from, so I'd assume some sort of a tree it's pressing against to hold itself there. Helps for some really cool display options as far as how you would like to pose the dinosaur and what you want to pose it up against. So that is definitely really cool. Again, some movement here showing some of the skin wrinkling and stretching here in the stomach as far as the way that the body is positioned. And the scaling looks really good all over the body once again. And look as I turn it, so much color variation throughout this figure. I really do love the color and the paint apps on this figure, and that reddish coloration that runs down the spinal column of the dinosaur helps to give it such a really striking look and plays off of that gray, I think, in beautiful and very realistic fashion. Coming down here into the rear leg, once again you can see the hip bone a little bit there, and then the musculature of the thigh. You've got that kneecap once again, which is elaborated with like a darker coloration, and then we move down the leg into the foot sculpt, and again, so much color variation throughout. Really realistic looking, again, as far as the skin tone goes. And then we lead out the tail, again with that really nice curve holding the dinosaur up. It looks extremely striking as far as the sculpt and the pose goes, but also the paint and the fine detailing. Definitely a really cool figure. Now, as far as the size goes, this is going to be a task because this figure is very tall and it doesn't fit in frame very well, so we'll try to bring the camera back so you can see the size. As we put this down on the ground, you can see as far as a height about 11.5 inches, maybe a little bit higher than that honestly, or about 29.5 centimeters, right around that range. And then there's not really too much that we can say as far as the length goes because there's not really too much going on considering how upright the dinosaur is. So I don't really think we need to measure a length on the figure, but as far as the size comparison goes, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon, and then there is the top of the head of the Jobaria, which now shows you that it is really tall in comparison to these figures, and as far as a deluxe figure from Collecta goes, it definitely has some very large size to it, which helps, I think, the overall presentation and striking look of the figure for sure. So this Collecta Deluxe Jobaria is absolutely awesome. Again, it's not as detailed as you would find on a more modern Collecta figure. That's just the way it is. It's an older figure from Collecta, so the sculpt as far as the fine detailing goes, in my opinion, isn't quite as nice as what we would see if Collecta currently made a Jobaria. But once you set that information aside and just take the figure in, it really is quite beautiful, and definitely, in my opinion, one of my favorite sauropods released from Collecta. I think the dinosaur overall, as far as the species goes, has such a very strange and very unique look to it, and Collecta really did a great job of replicating that throughout the figure, and the fact that they have it up in a rearing pose, kind of making it look like it's eating some vegetation from higher up in the tree, helps to give the dinosaur a very striking look, and definitely something that I think people will take note of if they come in and check out your collection. I feel like this figure alone would be one of the figures that would really draw people in because of its unique appearance, and Collecta did a great job as far as deciding to go with the rearing up pose. The sculpt overall is really nice as far as the fine detailing goes. Again, not as good as what you would see currently, but if you actually get close and look at the skin texture and everything as far as the dinosaur goes, it definitely looks really quite nice. And honestly, as far as the paint apps go, I feel like they might actually be a little better on this figure than what you would see on a current Collecta figure. Just the overall coloration is more realistic because now, although a lot of the Collecta figures currently do look really good as far as the paint goes, I feel like like as far as actual skin tone and the variations of color included, this one really has a very realistic appearance, and that is definitely something that I love to see in a figure. If I can look at it and think, wow, that really does look quite real, that is definitely a huge plus as far as I'm concerned, and that is definitely what I see here with this specific figure from Collect Day. So this one, as far as I'm concerned, is a total win. A really beautiful figure from Collect Day. So if you want to pick this up, I will link you in the description where you can buy this right now from Dejankins and EverythingDinosaur.com. So make sure you check the description, go purchase it from one of those two websites. But before you do that, make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.